Hey, what's going on, everybody? So I've been wanting to do a reaction video to this documentary that I saw about birds, and I've seen a few, pieces of material on the birds aren't real theory. Right? I don't call it a conspiracy. I call it a theory. I respect people's thoughts. I think that I can call them theories. They're ideas that people have. This one in particular that I want to react to is not only funny, but it makes you think as well. So, as well as thinking, there's laughing. So, I definitely want to get into it. Let's get into it.
Birds aren't real. I thought, are you kidding me? Of course birds are real, but the more I started to look into it, the more it drew me in and the more convinced I became. The theory is that since the 1970s, the government has been replacing birds with bird drones to spy on us. There is a staggering amount of evidence to support this, and by the end of this documentary, you will also be convinced that birds aren't real.
Have
you ever seen a baby
pigeon
pigeon?
Ever?
Ever?
1 second.
You probably haven't.
Okay, so I got like 4 pictures of supposed alleged baby pigeons. For such a popular bird in a lot of cities, I'm sure it's not just New York that has pigeons, but I've only really seen that gray pigeon in the city, which is weird as well. But I don't see many nests. There was one picture that I see where the birds are like in the corner with a nest there. But remember, pictures can be photoshopped. So I'm thinking like all these birds that exist in all these cities all over America, and there's one picture that I can find of them in a nest that looks like their outside environment. It looks like it's by a building. It could still be inside of something, but it looks like it's inside of a building. All the other birds that I see as pigeon babies or baby birds are like, I seen one that's like in a lab with other cages and birds and eggshells and stuff. Like they got them. That's kind of suspect too. Like they got them kind of in a lab. They're growing them or something. Why are you growing pigeons? Like, but why aren't they just in there outside just having babies and procreating that way? I don't know. But then again, it's like if they were fake, or do they have them? Do they make them and then put stuff in them? I don't. Or do they start out as drones like they're saying? Listen, I don't know, but I just see some pictures of some baby pigeons. They look very weird, but again, nothing to really convince me that this is totally off the wall. Like there's some real stuff in it that's gonna have you thinking. Let's get back into it.
Because they don't exist. But if they did exist, surely someone has seen a baby pigeon, right? So we decided to go to the streets to find out for ourselves. Have you ever seen a baby pigeon?
No.
Have any of you seen a baby pigeon, ever?
No, I don't think so.
I have not, no.
Have you ever seen a baby pigeon?
Actually, I haven't. That is kind of sketchy now that I think about it.
Have you ever seen a baby pigeon?
No,
What he
no,
was
I have not.
wondering
You know,
about.
I've wondered about that too.
Have you ever seen a baby pigeon before?
He was really wondering
I
about.
don't know. I don't think I have, actually.
Have you ever seen a baby pigeon?
What?
Yes, I have. Yeah. In Bangkok. Porch. On the balcony.
Do you by chance work for the government?
Yes, I do.
Coincidence? But that's not the only unsettling question. In fact, there are a whole slew of questions that don't seem to have any answers. For example, have you ever been successful at touching a wild bird? Of course you haven't. Every time you go up to touch one, it flies away.
Goodness.
So obviously the government doesn't want you touching
They
their
don't always
high-tech
fly
drones.
away.
When I go out in public, if I see a bird, I'll just freeze. And I can tell. It's an experiment I've done.
Exactly. It's so.
They will just watch. They don't fly away very often if you stay far away from them because they need as much data as possible. They only fly away when it's important to preserve the bird technology. So I will either freeze or I will run at the birds as fast as I can. And it pretty much keeps them away.
Goodness.
If I freeze long enough, the government will realize I'm not giving them anything. The birds will fly away. If I run at them, the government will realize I'm a danger to their bird program, and they fly away. That's how we should be living our lives. I feel so much more liberated now. I spend hours screaming at birds, and I really have never been happier.
I'm a videographer and I fly drones, but several times when I'm flying, I'll have a bird swoop down and try to attack my drone. This is because drones are the only instruments that we have that are capable of reaching the height
they
of
are
birds
kinda
and
strict with
spying on
these
them.
drones.
And obviously the government doesn't want our drones spying on their drones.
If you were to drop a feather, how fast would it fall? Relatively slow, right? But what if we were to throw a
This
feather?
theory
Just
doesn't
chuck
make
it at
any
the ground
sense
as
to
hard
me.
as you can. How fast would it fall? Still doesn't go very fast.
The fastest animal in the world is the peregrine falcon, which can dive at up to speeds of 240 miles an hour. That's pretty fast. But, you know, we can throw things pretty fast
Yeah,
too,
but the
right?
bird is
so I
not a
looked up
pile
the
of
fastest
feathers.
baseball pitch, and it was
It's
clocked
just
in at
covered with feathers.
105.1 miles an hour. So you're telling me that something made of feathers can go more than twice as fast as the fastest baseball pitch in the world, and say that it hasn't been mechanically engineered by the government, that it doesn't have a jet propulsion system? You gotta be kidding me.
See this? You know what it smells like? It smells like lies.
Starting in the 1970s, birds were disappearing in mass numbers, and people immediately began to speculate that the government was getting rid of them and replacing them with bird drones. So we see a dip in population in the 1970s, and then it slowly started recovering.
Have you ever seen a pigeon outside of the city? You will never see a pigeon in a forest. And this makes sense because pigeons didn't actually exist before cities were built.
We think we're so smart. As humans, we put tape over our laptop cameras because we don't want the government watching us, but yet we neglect to pay attention to the birds watching us right outside of our windows. We think we're so smart, we say, I'm not gonna buy an Amazon Alexa because I don't want the government listening in on me, but then we buy birds as pets. How much stupider can we get?
I once went over to a friend's house and they had just gotten a pet, and here I am thinking it's a cat or a dog, which heaven knows maybe the government's planning on replacing those too. But I had to leave the second I saw that it was just a little tweeter bird,
that's
and I haven't talked to them ever since.
As far as my personal experience with birds, it's a little hard for me to talk about. I had a bird. I had a bird in my house as a kid, my first pet, and
This is so
I never knew.
stupid.
the whole time I never knew. Now that I look back on it, I'm like, unless it was like closing its eyes, uploading at night, it was watching.
They do look at you a lot.
Every time I
You
walked
know,
in the
they're
room, it
always
looked at
looking
me.
at you.
Every time I walked out of the room,
I
it
had
looked at
birds
me.
growing
It's
up.
a personal vendetta for me against the bird program because they made me love what I should hate. And when it died, I realized that I just had to throw it in the fireplace, move on with my life. But I'm not going to forgive him for that.
So why do we have pet birds? This one is interesting because there are
Right.
only certain species that the
Right.
government allows you to have as pets. The
Right.
government allows you to have as pets if that's not clear as day. These birds are in the home because the home is the place people feel safe. You know, outside you can be judged for what you say, but in your home you can say anything that you want. The government wants to know all that as
Oh my
well.
goodness.
So I think it's listening
my
in our most
goodness.
intimate of moments, in our families together. They want to know everything about us.
You know,
They
I
can do that
thought
in our
about
homes.
getting a bird again.
I mean,
though,
these
like,
things talk. You're supposed to make me believe that there's an animal that we willingly let into our home that also can talk? It's ridiculous. But I too
I
believe.
think some of them are real,
birds
but
were
maybe
real.
like some of them have been swapped
and that's
out.
why I'm here
you
to
know?
try to convince other people
Maybe, I don't
of the
know.
reality.
It's not a victimless crime. That bird was my friend. What kind of sadistic programming do they have where you reach up and it hops on your finger with its little feet?
I
Just
think
looks at
birds
you,
are.
little
I
cute
think
little
that.
things.
No, I don't think all
Or
birds are
should I say
fake.
collect samples
That's a little
as you
crazy
feed
now.
them? I cared about that bird. It didn't care about me,
He's silly.
but they made me think it did.
He's silly.
How can you forgive something like that? I didn't have other friends. The bird was my only friend for years of my life.
The government's super smart, They have mechanically engineered pet birds to make them look cute, adorable, fluffy. You see, pictures and videos online all the times of these pet birds doing funny things, saying funny things, dancing, bobbing their heads. But obviously that's just a government tactic to try to soothe us into thinking that there's nothing wrong here, that these are just like any other normal, cute animal. But in reality, we don't know what these birds are doing when we're sleeping. We don't know the conversations that they're listening in on. We don't know how they're observing us when we walk around our house. The government already has a ton of data from us.
You do
from
see a lot of
social
people
media,
online with their
the
birds, like
websites that we
trying to
visit.
sell a
But in
bird
addition
to
to
you or
that,
something,
having a literal government drone
having
as a
relationships
pet
with them
bird,
and shit, and it's
it
like
now knows
it's almost like they're
everything about
tempting
you.
you to get a
Have you ever
bird.
tried to win in a fight against a bird? 2 countries have declared war on birds, and they both lost. The first was Australia. They had what was known as the Emu War, where they tried killing off all the emus, even using guns. But their attempts were unsuccessful. The emu population persisted, and they won. The next country who declared war on birds was China. Years ago, Mao Zedong, who was the former president of China, ordered all the sparrows to be killed. After a few years, the insect population had grown so much that locusts and grasshoppers and other insects descended on China's crops by the millions. Mao realized his mistake and called a halt to the war on sparrows, but the damage had already been done. Without the birds, China found itself powerless against the insects.
So here's a map of the world showing the countries who haven't declared war on birds versus the countries who have declared war on birds and who have lost.
Worst kind of bird is the hummingbird. The reason is that they look so cute on the surface, but that is just clever exterior design for the drones. The problem is that they fly so fast and so silently that you can't tell when they're about to dive bomb you.
Why
Are birds
they so
weaponizable?
quiet?
They're basically swords with wings that stab you in your heart emotionally. I haven't seen evidence of it physically, but emotionally, they get you. They're weapons. Take hummingbirds, for example. Beak needles. I would call them beetles. People get confused, and I'm like, don't.
Could be.
Don't. It's a beak needle. What do you think it's gonna be?
What they don't realize is that these hummingbird needles can inject anything. Some people believe in anti-vaxxer dogma, and they don't realize that it's not going to be a mandate from the government that forces them to get vaccinated. It's gonna be hummingbirds.
I don't know, I think birds might be real.
What is the animal that is the most illegal to kill in the United States? It's illegal to kill the bald eagle because they are the most expensive government drone and extremely difficult to replace.
They say that eagles can spot a mouse running from hundreds of feet in the air. That just sounds vaguely similar to the SR-71 Blackbird that uses telephoto lenses to take pictures from miles in the air. Obviously, they're using the same technology.
Someone got video evidence of a man trying to kidnap a bird drone, and this is what happened.
What does BIRD even stand for? Obviously, it stands for Bureaucratic Intelligence Reconnaissance Drones.
Did you know that when an owl flies, it is almost
very
completely
scary.
silent?
They look very
Any sound is practically indistinguishable. How much stealthier can a government drone be?
Each type of bird drone has a different purpose. Pigeons do
Public
city surveillance,
sanitation,
vultures are in charge
Dead
of
people
public
with
sanitation,
public
owls do
sanitation.
night surveillance, hummingbirds are attack drones, seagulls do coastal surveillance, hawks are the regional alphas, ravens are stealth attack drones, and
Linguistic
parrots
analysts.
are obviously linguistics analysts.
Something that is quite concerning is that we don't yet know what all the types of birds are used for. We know a couple of them, but ostriches, for example, very different in design from other birds. We currently have no idea what the purpose of an ostrich is. Is it in preparation for some sort of war, for some sort of takeover? Is it specifically location-based? I mean, some of these things are taller than people are and can run many times faster than us. Flamingos, they're pink. They sit around eating shrimp all day, but they have this ridiculously huge beak that looks suspiciously like it could be a weapon. I mean, we just don't know what some of these are, and that's incredibly concerning. And those are some of the things that we will be investigating as we move forward. And as people kind of catch on to this, we hope to uncover those mysteries as well. What worries me most is if they could do it with birds, they could do it with anything.
The scary thing is that this bird drone technology is increasing. The newest models of birds have 360-degree vision and even know how to dismantle anti-spy equipment.
Did you know that when a bird sleeps, it doesn't fall over? Do you know of any other two-legged creature that can sleep standing up? Could you sleep standing on two legs? What other animal do you know that can sleep standing on only two legs? Nothing, because they aren't
I don't
actually
think they
sleeping.
sleep either. I don't
This
know. Like,
is
they
the
just
sound that
kinda rest.
R2-D2 makes. And this is the sound that a bird makes.
Wow. I mean, that's
Coincidence?
crazy.
As far as how the mechanics work for birds, think about this, okay? So, this is like, what's
Wow.
this? Robot, right?
These people, they
What's
think
this?
a lot. They think a lot.
You can't tell anymore. Is this a robot or is this a bird? Nobody knows. Let me show you this. How about a little bit of a, like, right?
Okay.
Or how about a,
It is a little robotic. I think it is a little robotic.
I don't see a difference.
I will say this really quick about flamingos is that I've gone to the zoo several times and I talk to them. Like, I seriously talk to them because I want to see if they can understand me. And I kid you not. I kid you not. They understand what the hell I'm saying. They respond like in a bird way. I'm not crazy. Like, I'll gotta find the video. I'm gonna do a part 2 to this because I'm not gonna put this whole video in one video. It's too long. But in the part 2 video, I'm going to find the video when I'm talking to the freaking flamingos and they're freaking responding to me. They understand what the hell I'm saying. And I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I don't think my bond is that deep with birds that they understand what I'm saying. I think it's that maybe some of them really understand what I'm saying because, right? But I don't know. Like, it makes me think, like, how are these birds just sitting in the zoo all day and what are they doing? Like, we go to the zoo to watch the animals, but they're watching us when we go to the zoo. This is crazy. Like, you know how they say you watch the TV, but the TV's really watching you? Yo, this is like got me bugging out.
I think that the government's goal with bird drones is similar to any other mass surveillance system. It's like the things that we learned from Edward Snowden back in 2013 about mass surveillance programs, data collection through your apps and your devices. I think it's all part of the same campaign. I think they got constant camera monitoring on us. If they have, our location and our information from our devices, they also have eyes on us through the birds. It's all part of the same thing. Just keeping tabs.
I've actually started to do my own experiments about this. There's all these ideas of, like, throwing them food and stuff, right? And I've realized, I'm like, well, the thing is, drones don't need to eat, right? But what do we know about information? Information is power. These birds, when you're throwing them food, they're collecting data. They're collecting data about the products you buy so they can sell your data to these other companies. This is classic big tech. Did you feed them Doritos? What kind? Cool Ranch, maybe? Was it this new Salsa Verde variety? They want to know. The birds are going to collect your samples and they tell Frito-Lay how you're living your life. That's what they're there for. That's why they pick up the food.
If you grab your phone and you take a look at the camera on the back side of it, you may notice that it actually looks exactly like a bird's eye. Have you ever noticed that? Look at it. Looks exactly like the eye of a bird.